Good morning, class. Happy Thursday. Happy last day of the week and last day before spring break. Here is the plan for today, April 2. The objective is to start and introduce our next unit, which is focused on the Enlightenment as well as various revolutions. We'll focus specifically on the Industrial Revolution first, and then we'll move to more violent revolutions in the next unit. Our agenda is first I'll give you some reminders, then I'll introduce the Enlightenment. We'll take some notes on that, so get ready to do that. And then your homework, which I'll post after this, is going to be a Google Form survey that is due today at 3 p.m. That should not take you very long at all. So first, some reminders. I have graded all of your projects. Please check PowerSchool and check Google Classroom for specific comments I left on yours in the rubric that I filled out for you. Most of you had yours turned in in a way that I could view whatever you made, whether it was a brochure, a poster, a video, a website. Very few of you, just a couple, either didn't turn it in, or what you turned in, the link to it wouldn't work. So please check Google Classroom to see if that applies to you. I am hoping to grade your tests today and have those put in the gradebook as soon as possible, hopefully before today ends. Essential questions for this unit. The first two are staying the same as they have always been. If history is the story of change in the past, what are the key themes of this story and what can we learn from them? Second, did we achieve progress in this historical period of study? Why or why not? I have bolded that question because that will be the essential question for this particular unit on the Enlightenment and Industrial Revolution. With the Industrial Revolution and later revolutions as well, we will talk about question 3, which is what justifies a revolution. The Enlightenment will help kind of establish a foundation for that answer, but we won't fully get to that until we learn about these revolutions first. So I would recommend writing these down somewhere because these are your big idea questions and you will expect to have these questions show up in a project, debate, test. We'll see what happens after spring break. So I will put some of these vocab words on Quizlet, so don't feel like you need to write this down if you don't want, but you're more than welcome to if your heart so desires. The Enlightenment is a time period full of philosophy. Philosophy is a system of ideas. So we are going to talk about ideas that have changed the world and ideas that have changed specifically the United States of America, as well as many other modern nations today. One part of philosophy that emerges is this idea of natural law. Natural law is the rule of law that governs human nature. If you want to give yourself an example, find something that's not fragile or super heavy or won't break or break something else, pick it up and drop it. And what you have just experienced is the natural law called gravity. So these are laws not made by human beings. These are laws made by God. They're just a part of nature. There's not a specific person that has invented or created them. Gravity would be an example of that. And the last vocab word are natural rights. These are similar to natural laws in the sense that they are just a part of nature. They exist no matter what. It's not like a person created these laws. These are given to all humans, no matter who you are, how rich, how poor, how good, how bad, where you live. They are rights that belong to all humans from birth. And there's going to be some disagreements over what specific rights should be included in natural rights, but these are rights that apply to everybody all the time. When you fill out your survey, you're going to have to think about natural rights, so please keep this definition in mind, that these are rights that apply to all people all the time, no matter what. The United States, Thomas Jefferson said the 3 specific rights we had are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Right, so we will talk more in depth about the Enlightenment after spring break, but I do want to introduce it before we get there. First, the time period of this, which you don't need to memorize, but know, the Enlightenment covers what is called the long 18th century. What that means is it's the 1700s, but we call it the long 18th century because it starts a little bit before and ends a little bit after. So we're plugging on 15 years before and after. Otherwise, the 18th century is the 1700s. That's the time period we are mostly focused on. This is taking place between two revolutions. First is the Glorious Revolution, and second, the French Revolution. So the French Revolution was the event that ended what we talked about in our last unit, the age of absolutism. So the Enlightenment has a little bit of overlap towards the end of absolutism. The Enlightenment is going to be part of the cause of the revolutions, which ultimately become the cause of why absolutism ends in many parts of the world. The Enlightenment is a shift specifically in how people think and the type of ideas that govern how the world works. These ideas focus on reason, logic, individualism, it's where natural rights come into play, and skepticism, which means people are skeptical and critical of previous ideas or people or ways of doing things. They are skeptical. So this is a shift in thinking towards these types of ideas and this type of thinking. Since it emphasizes reason, the nickname for the Enlightenment is the Age of Reason. So we have the Age of Absolutism. This is the Age of Reason, which is simply using logical thoughts and rational thinking to draw conclusions. The ultimate result, which we'll talk about in more detail after spring break, is this shift of thinking towards logic and reason is going to change how philosophy is approached, system of ideas, how government works. It's going to decay the absolutist system we've had before, and how economies function, as well as just society as a whole. The way people act and think and live is going to drastically change simply because the ideas and way of thinking changes. That's what the Enlightenment is all about. This starts because of something called the scientific method, which I believe you guys had to do for your science class this year, which is use the scientific method to make a hypothesis and either confirm it, prove it, or disprove what educated guess hypothesis you came up with. This system of thinking, where you use observation, experimentation, you collect data and evidence. This is what's being used in the Enlightenment, instead of what was used before, which was classical thinkers from ancient Rome and Greece and the Bible. This way of thinking basically said, well, the reason this is the way it is because God made it that way. And you're using faith instead of reason to explain how the world works. The Enlightenment doesn't completely get rid of faith, but it's going to emphasize reason using the scientific method, scientific thinking, observation, experimentation, data collection. And it's not just going to apply it to sciences, but it's going to apply it to politics, government, the economy, society. Just a change in thinking from basically only using faith to now using your own brain and the scientific method to draw conclusions instead. So the scientific revolution is going to be the spark that ignites the Age of Reason. Here is the homework that is due today, 3 p.m. I don't think this will take you any more than 10 minutes to do. There's going to be a Google Forms survey. It's going to be the Enlightenment Intro survey. It's going to ask you several questions. Please read those questions carefully. Make sure you understand them. If you don't, just let me know. I don't want you to answer these questions if you don't fully understand what the question's asking you. Whatever responses you provide, make sure they are thoughtful and appropriate. I'm simply asking you to do your best. This will be a classwork grade. There's no specific right or wrong answer. The only wrong answer is one that's dishonest or isn't thoughtful. So as long as you're being honest, doing your best, giving thoughtful responses, you will get 100% on this assignment. It'll be the easiest grade you get, as long as it's done by 3 p.m. today. Please let me know if you have questions. I would encourage you to pay attention to the news today, as Governor Whitmer is expected to announce a new executive order that will hopefully update us on what our educational futures look like. Otherwise, I wish you all a wonderful spring break and look forward to seeing and talking to you again after it's done.